So I am April Chatham Carpenter. I am the department chair of the Department of Applied Communication at UA Little Rock, and we are really excited to have you here. Actually, a couple of people that started this leadership lecture series are here tonight. Mary Cantrell, Carol Thompson were two of the first people that actually got us started with doing leadership lectures, and we do them twice a year. This is our 8th annual year of doing them. And tonight we have one of our BA and MA alums with us, Sajni Kumpuris. Some of you know her already. She's currently Director of Education at Arkansas PBS. And, Sajni, I remember when she first came into my office and I really didn't know anything about her. She says, I want to finish my bachelor's degree. And I'm like, great. How can we help you do that? And she began to tell me about all the different work that she had done for 18 years before joining Arkansas PBS. She actually led a national business training network. She was a broadcast producer and an on-camera talent actually at Dillard's Corporate at Little Rock at one point. And she freelanced as a producer. She received actually 3 Telly Awards for her work. If you know anything about broadcast producing, you know that's pretty impressive. She actually spent 5 years at UAMS, and while she was there, she was also working on her MA in Applied Communication from UA Little Rock, graduate work. And her work there at UAMS was focusing on improving opioid education in Arkansas. That was only one of the things that she was doing at UAMS, but a few things. And since then, she joined Arkansas PBS in 2019, began to lead several initiatives. And you all remember what was happening in 2020. They had to automatically move online. A lot of programming to help the public school systems and private school systems in the state of Arkansas have programming for students. And they worked on a summer learning series, Arkansas AMI, Arkansas Ideas, Rise and Shine. You might have heard some of those. I know right now they're producing the first Narrative Kids television series. We're going to see a clip of that as part of this tonight. Mystery League. They actually have had 20 episodes, probably more than that now, that have been filmed entirely in Arkansas. And she also led storytelling initiatives at Arkansas PBS, including the award-winning documentary 7 Days, the Opioid Crisis. She'll probably tell a little bit about that. Lots of nominations for regional Emmy Awards, winning one for the work on Arkansas AMI, and also was very active in the community as a school board member for the Excel Center at Goodwill Industries in Arkansas. So we're really blessed tonight to have her with us. Tonight, she's going to be speaking on connecting with high quality educational and storytelling audiences through video-based content. We're going to have time for questions and answers at the end of our presentation tonight. So feel free to write your questions down, to be thinking about them. We'll be giving you an opportunity to ask them live, but also in the chat. So we're just excited to have you, Sajni. Welcome. You're normally in Arkansas. You are an Arkansas resident, but you're calling tonight from DC. So let's all give her a virtual clap. Welcome to our leadership lecture tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. April. Thank you all for being here today. It's nice to be with you. I am in DC. This is the annual time that we come to Capitol Hill, and we ask that they continue federal funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds public media. So it's a really important time. We will be visiting with our Arkansas congressional members tomorrow. So wish me luck on that. I'm here with our CEO at the station, as well as some of our commissioners. So we have a commission that is over Arkansas PBS. So I'm excited and of course nervous. So, but I'm so glad to be here with you today. And I thought today, I thought about what I'd like to do. I thought if I was going to do a presentation on storytelling, I should start with a personal story. So one of my favorites I'll share with you. I remember when my mom she used to tell me this story when I was growing up. Little girl, she told me, I asked her to tell it to me many, many times, but she told me when she was 19 years old and she lived in India. So my parents are immigrants from India. They came here in 68. But before that, when she was a 19-year-old girl, she remembered her father came to her and said, we have a family who's coming to meet you, because in the Indian culture, arranged marriages, even to this day, are very common. And, back in 68, it was very common. And so he said, the family's going to come meet you. And my mom, being a 19-year-old, she said, she didn't feel like she was ready. She wanted to go to medical school. She, she had different ideas of what she'd like to do. So she just left the house. She just left, knowing that they were coming. And so she just walking around town, doing things. And she remembered, she remembered like seeing some car of some girls, and they were just peering out the door. They must have been maybe 5 years older than her or something. She thought, well, that's very odd. But she went on, went, hung out, ate stuff. Eventually, it got close to nighttime, and she said she just felt bad. She loved her dad. She thought, I better go back. I guess I can't stay out here forever. So she did go back. And when she walked in the door, it was those same girls at the house. And they all stood up and they said, it's you? It's you? And she's like, I don't understand. They go, my dad was only had sisters. His parents passed away. And my dad had sisters, and they said, we saw you on the road. And we said, I wish that was the girl he was going to marry. And it was her. And it's the story that I heard of how my parents met. It wasn't necessarily because it was an arranged marriage, but the sweetness that surrounded it. They were married for 52 years until he passed away. So that story, I tell you, maybe it's not so important for others, but it's a really important part of my life. And of course, they're my parents. So those stories, and I try to remember, those are the stories that matter to other people when they hear them. They hope you get their story right, most of the time, and that you share it in a way that means something to them. I learned a lot about that story. I learned my mom had her own dreams. I learned that my parents were in love for 52 years and that I'm a product of that. And so I think that if you value the person who is telling the story and realizing what it means to them, you'll become a good storyteller. So I just thought I would start with a story first. And I have a couple of slides, but I'll go back and forth through them. And I'm not very good at doing this, but let me try. Okay, are you able to see the screen? Okay. So a little bit more about me. I am been in the video production and training business for 30 years. I was on camera for 18 years of it. I spent a lot of time in the fashion sector. They pulled me out of school around 21 years old. And I was on camera for a long time. Right now, I'm the director of education and the interim director of production at Arkansas PBS. I lead a cross-sectional staff of 29 individuals. Some are producers, some are educators, some are support staff. I work in public media, and our mission is public service. They're content focused on education, public affairs, and Arkansas stories. But I also wanted to, because I'm trying to express that doesn't really describe who I am. I wanted to share a little bit more about myself before I moved on. Like I had mentioned, I'm a daughter of Indian immigrants, and I'm American born, second generation immigrant. I am a true introvert. I mean, really, no one believes that. I don't know how I'm in the business I'm in, but it is real. And I have a lot of anxieties about how people perceive me, and I would say I'm a little self-conscious. I rarely socialize, but I have close relationships. My failures, my emotional pain through my life are very important to my story. I had a lot of trouble having kids and experienced a little bit of depression when I thought I would never have children. I have two beautiful children, a daughter, Mira, and a son, Aiden. And I was a very nervous mom, but I think it was because of my experience with having difficulty having children. I rarely participate in small talk. I like one-on-one conversations all day long. Small talk, I'll avoid it at all costs. I deeply, like I said, want real talks. I want the good, the bad, and the ugly about people. And I embrace all of that when I talk to folks. I can watch television for like 10 to 15 hours straight. Maybe that's why I'm in TV, but it's true. I can. But again, this is all to say, if you are going to tell my story, those are the important pieces, not necessarily what's on my resume. So I'm going to share a little bit about fiction, fictional storytelling and nonfiction. But I thought I'd show, and this is definitely not just to promote Arkansas PBS, we're public media, we're a non-commercial license, but to give you an idea of what I'm going to talk about. So this is a link of our current sizzle reel. I believe I was around for all of these pieces, and I think Dr. April is going to show that. Do you need me to?
I think I can take care of it now.
Okay.
Let me just make sure it's where people are going to be able to hear my computer sound as well. All right. And if you can't hear this, please somebody let me know.
Now this is where the magic happens.
We're investigating, you know.
The Mystery League works best when we work together.
Goes downfield, has a man at the 5, dives for the end zone.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event? Houston, this is Station. We are ready for the event.
I know that 35 is really 3 groups of 10.
3 groups of 10.
You're right. And how many ones would that be?
5.
It'd be 5.
5 ones.
Today we are going to look at letters, and we're going to notice the difference between some uppercase and lowercase letters.
Can we go back? This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. Can we go back? This is the moment.
When we started, all the people I did drugs with, there was 20 of us. There's 4 of us left. 3 of us are sober. 1 of us is on his way to prison right now.
Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Let's go. Hey, and all my people say. That's right. And all my people say.
There is something for everyone at Tyson Foods, from tuition reimbursement to apprenticeship, a lot of company paid and sponsored training. So really great chance to learn more about equipment, keep your day job, or even to work nights and go to school during the day.
On the next Arkansas Week, a report reveals challenges that women face in the workforce.
We have some great high-performing teachers in those schools. We need more of them.
I, Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
You can't do this by yourself. Anybody that think they can do this by themselves, something's wrong.
search is on for the most interesting and valuable collectibles from all around the state.
Wow.
Still going, touchdown!
Team sports in Arkansas really is the building of character. It's being able to get through trials and tribulations as a team.
A real-life mystery in Mulberry Springs.
There we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can hold.
The overarching theme is creating community.
This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can hold us. Like the ceiling can hold us.
So that's what we do. That is, I'm surprised, I mean, that is all our local content. That was all made here in Arkansas at with our station. Of course, we have a lot of those British and national shows you all know, but those were the things that we do here in Arkansas for our viewers. Our focus is education predominantly. So we have the biggest PD online LMS for K through 12 teachers. And then we tell stories, Arkansas stories, any story that from a variety of places and topics. So I will, I'm going to share my screen. I'm not sharing it, am I, right now? Let me. Okay, so I couldn't really do anything at the station without the amazing team I have. So here's just, I think, half of them. But you can see they're a lovely bunch. We like eating a lot while we're working. But this is a cross-sectional team of educators and producers. What I love about this group, and you can see it, it's a diverse group with a lot of different pasts and histories and backgrounds. And they brought, you know, a lot of value to the things that we did. So there they are. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why, what's important in video storytelling, non-scripted storytelling, and scripted educational storytelling. So what is the goal typically for storytelling? If you're going to tell a story, you want a beginning, a middle, and an end. Or you want to teach something, you want to gain knowledge by the end of it. You typically have characters, whether they're fictional or real, and they're the people who are in your video. And then there's also influences on that story you're telling that you supplement with. So the environment that you choose to film them in, the music, and editing is very much about, you know, the anticipation of what is coming at the end. And so editing is a very important piece. Sometimes you will go and film something for 10 hours and come back with a 2-minute piece. And what an editor does is, how do I encapsulate what's important here, what, you know, keeps them here to want to watch to the end and things like that. And then music always drives all of us. I used to be in geriatrics at UAMS, and one of the things, and Mary, you may remember this from the, you know, they said music, you may lose a lot of things, your memory and things like that. Music is one of those things that you will remember for a very long time. And if you ever want to calm someone down who maybe has dementia or something like that, go to music. That's how powerful it is. And it's equally as powerful in storytelling. So basically, anytime we look at a topic, and anyone should look at a topic, whether it is straight on educational content or, you know, a human interest story is, you know, you have to look at it as a producer, as an educator. What are you trying to share? Are you sharing an achievement? Does someone do something, unique or amazing in their life? Is there a challenge? Are they suffering from a problem, a social issue, something like that? Or is it just a feel good? You just want to get to know somebody and you're going to tell that story through video. It's very important that you learn who the players are and their background and experience. And what I'm talking about here is more pre-production, the things that you think about, the things that you research prior to going in and meeting the people that are in your video. What are the things that you should be looking at, thinking about, stuff like that? What are the facts? There are certain things that you need to be mindful of and know these are facts or these are really just a part of a personal story. What's the environment? A lot of times you'll see interviews done in a room that has no distinct, environment about it. Was that the right choice to tell your story? Was it maybe more important to get that person in their everyday life? So these are the things that you kind of think about when you're in pre-production. And then finally, in pre-production, you'll say, what's your overall good goal? Are you trying to connect? Are you hoping that other people see themselves in the story, that they don't feel alone? They have a sense of belonging? Are they supposed to learn something, if they're a student? Or will it help with a problem that's a real challenge in our society? So those are all things that you look at during the pre-production of any video. And I always say in video, and what I like to say to my group is, I'd like you, if you had 4 phases of making a video, I want you to stay in this for at least the first half, maybe even the first 3. I think it's really important before you ever go out and tell a story is that you understand it in a real way and that you can see that there's different perspectives. So I say, stay here and think about this for a while before you go out there and think you know everything that you need to know because you heard a little tidbit about a story. So my team, they're the most amazing team. And what I try to do, I feel like at this point of my career, I hope to be a mentor. I was a producer. I told a lot of stories, but I want to see these new storytellers kind of emerge and give them what they need. And so I went back to my team and I asked them some of these questions so you could get their perspective on how they approach storytelling. So here's one. One of my producers said, a story will hardly ever be what you thought it was before filming. You will know the true story as you film, how it evolves, and sometimes you won't really know until the editing process. Having an open mind is key to finding the best story to tell. Another one said, often being a narrative or documentary storyteller is really just being a good listener. A story is always developing and growing, so listen and trust your instincts to go to the place where the story wants to go. Another producer, for nonfiction, it helps to show your characters in a real world and away from the conventional interview space. So you have to show the character living in the space for a while to capture authentic, candid action. Whereas in fiction, you have to make the space lived in enough to make it believable. And so and I don't know if you can see, I think I had cut it off, but at our station, we very much collaborate with the educators. And I'm not sure that all PBS stations do that, but I understand that that collaboration is essential because we don't want to get it wrong. So I always have the educators in the room. They are also part of the creative process. And so here's one of my curriculum educators who is always a part of the process of some of our content. So the audience is the most important thing to consider. We have to consider what they should already know based on the standards for that age group, provide a little bit of review for those who may not be there and focus on the skill in language that is appropriate for that age group. Academic language for a second grader will be much different than language for a 7th or 12th grader. We also have to consider where the standard is leading them for the next level to help them build that scaffold so they can continue to succeed. The next educator said it's really important to consider what the children would likely already know or not know as foundational knowledge for those standards. For example, if the standards are for beginning readers, do they have the foundational skills that would lead up to what you're trying to teach? And I think I have one more. We can't assume that all learners are going to be on the level they should be. We have to provide background enough so that anyone can succeed. Poverty and limited life experiences have a great impact on learners, and we cannot assume that they all have had the same exposure to places, events, etc. The longer the generational poverty, the less likely they are to be exposed. So this is all to say that it's really important that when you go into something, you think of all those things that your audience may be experiencing. What are those universal themes that you can capture to connect? And maybe it's just a certain group that you're trying to connect with, only them, but also you limit your storytelling when you do that. So if you can find a way to appreciate your audience and know where they're coming from, one of the things that we really value, and I think I brought in from UAMS, is plain language. We have a very high, low educational attainment in our state, and that includes adults. And if you're using a lot of words they don't get, you really didn't do anything. So we look at those things that universally people can understand the words that you choose, especially in education and things like that. So I tried to come up with a couple of things that were very special to me, and I have a lot of them, but so I just picked 3 in the last 30 years. The first one is, when I was a freelancer, I used to do stories for Goodwill Industries of Arkansas, and I did these stories of people who had come out of prison, and they always said they give you $10 and basically a pat on the back. And it's very hard to start your life over with something like that. So Goodwill comes in and they have, I think it's a transitional opportunities program where they get people in the workforce and do things like that. So I was brought in. There's always a graduate of the year and things like that. And I went in, this may have been 10 years ago, and they said that, the graduate of the year is this guy named Brian Miller, and he had trouble with drugs. He went to prison. He's come out. He's been working here, and now he's one of our managers at our store. I said, okay, lovely. And so I went in to tell that story, and that's what we intended to do. But what I also, make sure when I go in there and interview is I don't force myself into what I thought the story would be. And so I didn't there either. I let us have the time to just talk and things like that. And what ended up with that story was, it wasn't really that story I just told you about what happened. It was really about, there was one piece where we took the time and he shared with us, my life changed when they said, here's the key to the store. We trust you. And it took him back to all those times he never felt trusted his whole life. And what that meant for him and changed him. It wasn't having a job. It was another individual saying, I trust you. And something he never had. And that ended up being the story. And you have to allow yourself to listen, to not assume, to even go in saying, Okay, this is the story. If you do that, you're going to miss maybe the most personal, the most important pieces. And I believe because we went with what was important to him was why it connected with so many people, because we realized that must be how other people feel sometimes. That was the thing. And so we try to get people to think about that as storytellers. You know, storytellers, you are telling someone's story. You are not the story. You don't design what the story will be. And I remember we did a documentary called Southern Storytellers last year, and there was a famous poet named Jericho Brown, and he said, you will never write the poem you intended to write. And so that means you opened yourself up to just see what it would be, and you didn't lock yourself in to what you thought, this vision of what you wanted to portray for your audience. So my second storytelling video that I loved, I did at PBS. And this was personal to me. It was a coincidence. I did my graduate degree on opioid education. I did it because I was at UAMS. When I got recruited to PBS, maybe a year later, they're like, what do you think about doing a documentary on the opioid crisis? And I felt like, really? Like, that's my dream, you know? But it was just a happy coincidence. But in this, we interviewed, I think, over 30 individuals. And I'm going to give a shout out to Aja Rogers, who was that person who interviewed 30 people to see, you know, when you look at on-camera talent and characters, it's really important as a storyteller to do those pre-interviews because people can have amazing stories and they're important and they should be told. But when you have 30 minutes to tell a story, you need to be able to know how they're going to be able to connect with others on camera. So we often do pre-interviews, get to know people, and say, you know what, their story is really going to translate into video and really connect with others. So that's one thing that we do. And I think from the 30, we ended up with 7. And I hired an amazing filmmaker named Nathan Lewis, who produced this and filmed and created this story. And, you know, our team got all the facts and they're shown in graphics and things like that. But one of the stories we told was about this girl named Michaela. And we heard her story. She had gotten into drugs and she told her story and how she got out of it. And now she helps others and things like that. But when she was leaving the interview, she stopped Nathan and she said, hey, you know, thank you for interviewing me and stuff. She goes, but can I show you what's really important to me? And he's like, sure. And she said, I asked my friend, who was also an addict at the time, I asked her, next time I overdose, record me so I can see it afterwards. And she goes, I wish you would show this. And so we had done this long interview but you know, that was her story. That was what was important to her. And I think Dr. April's going to show it ended up being the beginning sequence of 7 days. And I think we're going to look at that.
All right.
Dude. Michaela. Dude. What is this?
were seeing more and more prescription medications and opioid-based narcotics.
So that's hard to watch. But what it did, and what we tried to embrace her story, because that was what was important to her. She had said, that's what got me out of this, is that request to record me, you know, and for me to see myself. And once this documentary went out and we shared that, and we told more of her story, but we shared that. I look at the comments, and you can as well, and people connected with that. And they also, it affected, a lot of people said, you know, I'm not alone. Wow, you know, this can happen to me. And so I guess the long story of that, long story short of that, is that had we been very strict of how we were going to tell the story, and you don't allow yourself to let the story emerge, we may have missed one of the most powerful things that ended up in that story. And, you know, a lot of times when you're a storyteller, you have to be someone who truly loves people. And when you go in there to interview them, you're there to have a real conversation, and it will emerge from that. And I learned that from the ACOM group, is that time with people and having real connection with them makes a difference, and it will impact others. So that's one of my other special stories. And my last one, and I think I'm done, is for the very first time ever in the station's history, we got some federal funding to do a nonfiction kids series, all filmed in Arkansas. It was a blank page, and we were offered to tell this story focused on civic engagement, leadership, community involvement. So it had educational standards, true, you know, K through 12 educational standards. But other than that, we were able to do what we wanted to. So I'm going to give you, this is another version of storytelling. It has a lot of the same practices and techniques and tools that we use. And let me see. Okay, so Mystery League was a live action fictional 18-episode kids series. It took us almost 2 years to make. It's airing right now, so if you have little ones or grandkids, you can watch. And we started with the premise, inspired by their favorite storybook character. 3 fifth-grade detectives solve weekly mysteries in their school and around their small southern town, discovering the meaning of friendship and the power of community along the way. Each episode and its accompanying resources will teach concepts aligned with Arkansas State curriculum standards. And one of our directors, so the key people, I was the producer, there were 2 directors, the writer and the head of education were all Arkansas PBS folks. I think we hired about 120 video professionals and over 370 actors. We filmed it this past summer, all here in Arkansas. But for the TV director, he said one of the most, one important aspect to get right is the portrayal of an authentic world. For fiction, you have to create an environment that feels authentic for the characters within. So what we did, and I'll go through this pretty quickly, but we started with our characters. We knew these characters, just like real life, had to have unique things about them and bring something that people could connect to. And so we went into the writer's room, and you saw that gang of folks, and we created themes to start creating these characters. So what we determined for most individuals and people belonging, you know, sorry, I've got that cut. Control and what's personal. We took these aspects. I don't know if you can see all of that. It's kind of hidden on mine. But we took those themes, and that's how we made the characters. And so what was important in this, because we had 11 people in the room, people brought their own experiences to create these characters. They talked about their own childhood and what was important. So one of the kid A ended up being a STEM kid, had a fear of public speaking, ambitious, daydreamer, outcast, materialistic, free-spirited, success-driven, poverty, but unaware they're poor, OCD. We tried to take real experiences and create these characters. One loved drama, was spontaneous, sometimes insensitive, introverted, quiet, fear of failure, middle class, perfectionist, people pleaser. So from my description of myself, you can see a couple of these of mine ended up in these characters. And I think that happened to all of us. The last one was athletic focus, control freak, extrovert. He was a caregiver for his little brother, empathetic, easily distracted. So I think, we take the same things that we do in nonfiction and we create this world where people in your audience can connect. We had standards we had to cover. They had to be curriculum based. They had to be right. And to give you an example, we would go in and we would say, okay, here are the standards we have to cover. And we had a writer. He's an amazing writer on staff who taught us all how to go through a 3-act structure. So if you're going to tell a story, if you ever decide to go into fiction, which I know a lot of people in nonfiction are doing that recently. I think COVID made a lot of people want to write fiction or something. So I've seen a lot more of that. But we always started with an inciting incident. The first act always ends with the hero in pursuit of an adventure. The story changes directions completely. At midpoint, a reversal of fortune that forces the hero to recommit to his goal. The end of Act 2, the dark night of the soul, the hero feels like everything is lost, but musters the strength to continue. And then the climax, the hero faces off with the antagonist one last time. So this is how everything in our life, right? Pieces in our life kind of have this structure. So we kind of followed that. And then finally, with those standards, and I'll go back to that, here were our standards: identify where products used in daily life are produced, identify ways people buy and sell goods, discuss reasons and methods people, goods, and ideas move from place to place. So we ended up, after duking it out for quite a bit, like we do with this storyline, and I'm not going to read it because I cannot, it's a little cut off for me, I think, because I see the everyone's pictures, but we came up with, it's a fun, caring story. The children are children we think other kids will relate to, and it'll be meaningful for them, and that's what we wanted to offer. And so there's character arcs, there's a season-long arc, and there's a lot that we're teaching, but you won't know it because it's funny and fun, and there's a lot of good things in there. So I'll show you a little 1-minute trailer, and then I will take questions if you have them.
All right, so let me get that pulled up.
A real-life mystery in Mulberry Springs.
Who is Sammy the Sloth? My science teacher is a robot.
You've got to be kidding me.
Troublemakers from another planet.
From another planet? We're on the case.
Thank you, Mystery League, for solving this mystery.
Oh, stop that. All right. Well, thank you, Sajni, for telling us wonderful stories about your storytelling adventure. And I'm sure that we have people that have questions. So this is the time for you to raise your virtual hand if you would like to do that, or you can write your question in the chat. So comments, questions, feel free to let's start a discussion. See some comments coming in. Yeah, Brandon.
Hello. First off, Sajni. Hello, I'm a huge fan. I'm so glad to see you again. I have heard such great stories about your leadership and about how you manage your team so effectively with love and care. So my question to you is, how has your degree in applied communication shaped your leadership style?
I promise that was not a plant question, in case any of you think that this is just an attempt to get people into our program, Brandon, but thank you. It's a great question.
So it had a lot to do. I don't think I would have been sufficiently prepared to take on the challenges, a lot of people that I did when I came to Arkansas PBS without the ACOM program. And I'll tell you, they recruited me. I was at UAMS. I was very happy there. I enjoyed myself, but I got recruited. They called me and I was struggling because I loved my job at UAMS. And so guess who I called for advice and her thoughts? Dr. April. She was my one call I made before I made the decision to go to Arkansas PBS. And I talked to her for a while. And I remember a few things. And I've said this to actually my own folks, because I have some managers under me. And the first thing I remember she said, she goes, if you really want to do it, she goes, stay as long as it aligns with your values. And I remember that. And I remember that every day, even when we're having a hard time. Things have changed. You know, it's challenging these days. We are a state government agency, and things like that. So that was one. And then two, I remember she said, no matter how much you have on your plate, if you have 10 things on your plate, remember not to get 5 done, to be there for your people. And I remember that. And I try to do that. So when people walk in my office and I have a lot to do, I stop because I know it matters. And I try to be really, I think other things that I've learned from the program, I try to be honest. I try to really listen and actively be a part of it. Dr. Mariville, I don't know how many times I've showed them the positive communication things. It's like I should just have I should have copies because I keep sending it to people. But it's really the way I want them to approach when they talk to other people and when they're hearing people's stories. People are very nervous about being interviewed and things like that. And I said, it's your job to make them comfortable, to do the things that they want to share their conversations, you know, and their story, their personal stories with. So, I mean, I could go on and on, Brandon, but it taught me a lot. It prepared me for this. I do not think I would have been prepared. It taught me a lot of the skill sets that I have, that I hope my team benefits from. And, you know, honestly, I want them to succeed. This is their time. And if I can, I'm got to be very honest. They know I'm going to tell them exactly what I think, but it comes from the right place and that we collaborate. I mean, collaboration is everything, and that everybody comes in and nobody's over another person in their thoughts when they walk in the door. I remember when we were making Mystery League, there were a couple of times we just like stormed out of the writer's room because we couldn't come up with a story, because we all, I think it's for a good reason. I think we all felt very comfortable telling how we felt about what we were telling. So, you know, no one was going to back down with their thoughts, but I think that was an open communication process. So everyone's like, no, I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm not there. And we just leave. So yeah, I mean, it taught me so much. I will forever, you know, it has helped me in in this part of my job, my career.
There's a question in the chat from Michelle Malone that says, is there a way you would recommend to, quote, let the story emerge? Do you recommend specific questions or any tips on that?
I think that don't be locked into your questions. You may come with some, maybe 5 questions, you know, tell me where you're from, tell me a little bit about your family, you know, let's talk a little bit about maybe that was, well, you know, your, you know, the football game that's, you know, and the score you made that was heard around the world, whatever. You have maybe 5 things, but you let it emerge and you have to listen to what they're saying and have a conversation. So what would you do if you were in a room with them and we're just talking? You were there to talk to them for an hour. They're the person who is sitting next to you at a table. What would you talk about? And that's the best approach. I know that's not that concrete, but I think that's maybe the most important thing is that be in the space. And you know, when you get more familiar with storytelling, you will know when you got what you needed. And if you didn't, just keep going, just have a conversation because it could lead, it may take an hour before someone's comfortable. They don't know you. They don't. So I think, yeah, come so you're prepared and you know what you have to cover, but let it go much beyond that. Just have a conversation and see what they want to talk about and see where it goes and really, really listen. So if they start talking about their mom, ask, tell me more about that. Tell me how you grew up. What are the things that you know, are so special about your mom? So you have to be really listening to what you see emerging as what's important to them. And you'll get what you need.
All right, Kinko, I see your hand up. You'll unmute yourself.
Okay, this has been very, very good tonight. I'm in the middle of making a documentary film about an Ainu woman. The Ainu are the indigenous people of Japan, and I already made 2 documentary films that are available on YouTube. And I'm a sociologist, so the first 2 documentary films, I interviewed some 30 people, the Ainu elderlies, you know, and then they said, if you do not shoot us now, not shoot like that, but, you know, make a movie of us, we're going to be dead soon. And surely enough, a couple of people did die in the past several years and so on. So I shifted to this younger woman who is in her middle age. She's in her 40s. And she obviously watched my movies about the elderly men and women who had a lot of problems at school and at work and so on because of discrimination, prejudice, and governmental policies and everything else. But so she's saying that I would like to tell a story and I'll tell you. So I went to her house up in Hokkaido for 5 days and I did, you know, do the shooting about our conversation and so on. And what she told me was like, I would like to tell my story, not filtered by a sociologist. So there is a dilemma. Me as a storyteller who is a sociologist and who thinks like this, and she want to tell her story the way just she would tell a story, not a sociologist talking on her behalf. So I'm in the kind of bind right now because when I make documentary films, I want them to be educational. So when I made the 2 films, each time these elderly people mentioned this and that, I would insert certain historical event or the laws or whatsoever that went into that kind of experience. But in her case, she does not want to be portrayed as a victim of circumstances because the way she lives is totally not really affected by the prejudice, discrimination, all these past things. So my question is, so how much of me as a storyteller can put my sociological thing in there? Because there's so many good things that I can discuss. But at the same time, she requested that she is a storyteller, so I'm a videographer. You know, but I am loaded with all these sociological lenses. So where should I stop being a sociologist and just, but at the same time, if I do that, then it's not going to be educational either. It's just a story. So So what is your advice?
Yeah, so it's important. So I've stressed the fact that it's somebody's story and you have to be honest about it. But you are the storyteller, so it is your film and it has to have your voice as well. So it's a hard thing. So I'll go back to 7 days, the opioid crisis. I knew as an educator, I needed to cover important parts of addiction, right? How you get addicted, what the statistics are, what's the problem in this country with it, what is fentanyl, what is it, what is that drug? So I went in knowing I had to cover those things, but I also had to tell those stories of addiction, of loss, of grief, those things that were very disconnected to the facts, right? So what I think as a storyteller, I would watch some other things that kind of have that layering of stories and educational content or things like that and see how they did it. So the way we did it was the educational pieces were graphics and they came as segues between the personal stories. So the personal stories stayed intact. And my suggestion is maybe when you do this documentary, that's her perspective. Maybe you need a couple more stories in there so their perspectives may align to what you're also trying to teach. But let her story be what it is. But they will see if you infuse the educational pieces and those important pieces in some way or another. And you may want to use a different style. So you tell the story in a certain way where you use a different camera style for that, and then choose to do your educational pieces in a different, maybe a narrator, maybe graphics, things like that. But yeah, I think maybe if someone is kind of stuck, I'm going to tell my story this way. You may, as a filmmaker, decide it doesn't give me the full story, so I'm going to have to start adding people. We did that all the time. We were like, there's not enough here, or there's not enough of a story to fully tell it. So we went back out. And so I wouldn't lock yourself into having to have that documentary until you have the pieces, and go back again and again and out there, see what else is out there to fill your story. So yeah, I think oftentimes it's hard to tell just one person's story in a documentary, especially when it's a social issue or a challenge where you're trying to also teach people that the problem is, needs to be. So that would be, yeah, get more people's stories into that one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more, Bailey. Is there one in the chat?
Yeah, Shalonda Michelle is just interested in, as someone who's interested in traveling around Arkansas, collecting stories, creating documentaries, particularly on social issues, with an outcome that's hopefully solution driven. Where do you suggest people get started if they have an interest in kind of this storytelling for some kind of social change interest?
So if you're interested in helping with the social challenge, what I would do let's say, so some of the topics that we're doing right now at Arkansas PBS for teachers, for K through 12 teachers, we are doing human trafficking this year. We're doing mental health awareness. And last year we did bullying and teen suicide. And I think the approach that you should take is start looking and researching the people that are helping in the community, those organizations, those nonprofits, maybe, the higher education. Look and see what's there and go and have a conversation. Then research that topic so you really understand the topic well. So I always tell our producers, don't go in and film anything until you can give me you can tell me what this is all about. You can explain it. I think you're ready to go out there because you go with that. So yeah, I would reach out to the people who deal with it day to day and just hear their stories. And just in a lot of things we learn and put those themes together kind of see where you're going with this, see what's connecting and things like that. But I always go to the people who actually are, you know, in the trenches, really doing the work. They know the people who are suffering or achieving great things. And I would just start by having those conversations about whatever it is important that you want to start doing. That's great that you want to do that.
Well, this has been amazing, Sajni, and it's always great to reconnect with alum and with someone who is so well loved as you are in our program. We would love to get a picture of all of the folks here. If you're willing for you to be in that picture and would like to have your camera on, this would be the time to turn a camera on. And so that you can do that. If you're not willing to do that, then thank you for coming tonight, and we really appreciate you coming. So I'm just seeing if we have any cameras on that we would like to have people. It looks like we've got a few on here. So I think Kristen and Bailey, you usually are the ones who take the picture. So we're gonna take a couple here. And if you want at this point, Bailey or Kristen, you could just actually hide the non-video participants so that we only have the ones with pictures. So that would be the other options as well. So, all right, well, let's all look like we had a great time tonight, which we did with Sajni. So let's take a first picture with us just smiling.
All right, and 3, 2, 1.
All right, and then in ACOM style, we always like to do some kind of odd pose or kind of funny pose.
All the MA alumni and current students reacted before you even finished that sentence.
Is. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, then you can be our straight, normal people in terms of not comedy. That's what I meant by that. And so, so if you would like to put a face on, or, you know, some kind of, yeah, there you go. So get ready to take a picture.
3, 2, 1. Great job, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much for attending this leadership lecture tonight. I will have a recording of this in case you know of other people that would benefit from this. You can just reach out to my email at April Chatham Carpenter at UALR. I think you probably have that already, but it's AX Chatham, chat like you talk, ham like you eat, ca@ualr.edu. So if you're interested, if you also are interested in learning more about the Applied Communication Department, our department, you can also go to ualr.edu/appliedcom. Thank you so much again, Sajni, tonight. Really, truly appreciate it. We have a whole bunch of thank yous in the chat tonight. So absolutely wonderful. And thank you for the work that you're doing. It's not just about this presentation, it's the work that you're continuing to do in the state of Arkansas to provide educational experiences for the citizens. I mean, that's really the theme here, but it's also the mentoring that you're doing as you are working with your own team and continuing to serve in that way too. So blessings and thank you for everything that you do. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm going to call this to a close, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
All right, Sajni. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, April.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.